Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we have a very specific and honestly, a very important goal. We are equipping you with a complete, foolproof test prep playbook to master those tricky poetry terms for the EOG reading assessment. So whether you're a student trying to lock down these definitions or a parent coaching from the sidelines, This Explainer is built just for you. I want to just acknowledge the struggle right out of the gate here. If you hear the phrase poetry analysis and kind of just internally groan, you are absolutely not alone. Why do these words feel so incredibly hard to remember? Well, it's because we're dealing with abstract concepts. Words like assonance, enjambment, and consonants. They can all easily blur together. But here's the good news. Mastering this specific language gives you a massive advantage on test day, and we're going to break it down so it actually sticks.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap to reducing that cognitive overload and building a really solid EOG toolkit. We'll start with the EOG Poetry Challenge, then look at narrative versus lyrical poetry, tackle tricky terms, sort out sound devices, learn the TPCASTT Namask, and wrap up with the Parent Study Playbook.
So kicking things off with Section 1, the EOG Poetry Challenge.
The crucial point here is that to beat the test, you have to know exactly what the test is looking for. You don't need to memorize the entire dictionary of literary terms all at once. Instead, you really want to focus your study efforts on these high-priority elements: theme, speaker or voice, tone and mood, simile, metaphor, imagery, and symbolism. These are the big seven. They pop up on nearly every single EOG poetry passage. So mastering these, that's going to yield the best possible results.
Moving right along to Section 2, narrative versus lyrical poetry.
Whenever you open that test booklet, you're generally going to encounter two main types of poetry. Over on the left, we've got narrative poetry. Now, a great trick to remember this is that narrative starts with an N, right? Just like the word novel. It tells a story. It has a clear plot, a beginning, middle, and end, plus characters and a setting. Think of epics or ballads. Then, on the right, we have lyrical poetry. Lyrical sounds like the lyrics to a song, meaning it's short, musical, and packed with personal emotion. Think sonnets or odes. Here's a really quick test tip for you. You can often recognize the difference just by looking at the structure. If you see dialogue and a timeline of events, you're reading a narrative poem. But if you're reading about a single, intense feeling or memory, it's lyrical.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds. Tackling tricky poetry terms.
All right, this is hands down the most confused pair on the test. Simile versus metaphor. A simile is a comparison using like, as, than, or resembles. You know, like, life is like a box of chocolates. A metaphor, on the other hand, is a direct state of being. It states one thing is another, totally skipping the like or as. So, life is a journey. Here's a super helpful memory trick. The word simile has the letters L and I in it, just like the word like. And a metaphor is magic. It literally transforms one thing into another. Now listen closely, because it is not enough to just spot these on the test. Your test tip here is to always identify what is being compared and why. Like, if love is compared to a red rose, the test wants you to understand that the simile suggests love is beautiful, but also may be temporary and seasonal. Next up, tone versus mood. Tone is the poet's attitude toward the subject. Are they being nostalgic, bitter, hopeful? Mood, though, is the emotional atmosphere created in you, the reader. Does it make you feel melancholy, joyful, uneasy? To keep these straight, just remember, tone belongs to the teacher, or the poet, and mood belongs to me, the reader. Tone is the cause, and mood is the effect. The absolute golden rule here: never ever use the same word for both on the EOG.
Let's look at one more high-priority term, and that's personification. If you ever blank on what this means, just look at the first 6 letters, P-E-R-S-O-N. This is all about giving human or person-like traits, emotions, or abilities to non-human things, like an idea, an object, or an animal. It literally brings abstract concepts to life. When you see this on the test, always ask yourself, what human quality is being assigned here, and how does it change the meaning? Why did the poet choose that specific human trait?
And this brilliantly illustrates personification in action. The fog comes on little cat feet. Here, Carl Sandburg is assigning the silent, gentle, stealthy movement of a cat to a weather phenomenon. It suddenly makes the fog feel alive and a little mysterious, right? This is exactly the level of deep reading the EOG expects.
Okay, Section 4, sorting out sound devices.
Now, what's really interesting about this cheat sheet is how it simplifies things. To tell these sonic art forms apart, you literally only have to ask one question: what repeats?
If it's the beginning consonant sounds, like slippery silver snakes, that's alliteration. If it's vowel sounds hiding inside the words, like the rain in Spain, that is assonance. And a great trick for that one, assonance starts with an A, which is a vowel. If it's consonant sounds inside or at the ends of words, like pitter-patter, that's consonance. And finally, if the word literally sounds like its meaning, buzz, crash, sizzle, that's onomatopoeia. If you can lock these definitions in your memory, sound devices will be incredibly easy to spot, for sure.
Section 5. The TPCASTT mnemonic strategy.
So, what happens when you sit down, open the test, and just stare blankly at a poem you've literally never seen before? Well, you use this cheat code. TPCASTT is a step-by-step formula for analyzing any unfamiliar poem. And here is the real secret. Work through these steps in order before you even glance at the test questions. T is for title. Make a quick prediction before you read. P is paraphrase. Put the stanzas into your own literal words. C is connotation. Look for the deeper emotional meanings. A is attitude or tone. Find out how the speaker is feeling. S is shifts. Locate exactly where the time, tone, or subject changes. The second T is title again. Revisit it. Has its meaning changed now that you've read the poem? And the final T is theme. State the central message as a complete sentence. Honestly, if you do this, the test questions basically answer themselves.
I do want to pause for a second on the C in that mnemonic, connotation. This is often the hardest concept for students to grasp. It refers to the emotional and cultural meanings a word carries way beyond its literal, boring dictionary definition. The EOG absolutely loves testing this. So practice asking yourself, why did the poet choose the word crimson instead of just saying red? What extra emotional weight does crimson carry? That right there, that is connotation.
And finally, Section 6, the Parent Study Playbook. Parents, listen up, because preparing for the EOG doesn't have to be a solo, stressful endeavor for your student. You want to frame this as a collaborative team effort. Sitting down together to read builds immense confidence and actually removes a lot of the anxiety from test prep. It's a real game changer.
Here are the most effective at-home strategies you can use. First, read poetry aloud together. Seriously, hearing the rhythm and the rhyme makes them so much easier to identify than just reading silently. Second, start by asking, how does it make you feel? Start with the mood and then work backward to find the tone or the imagery. Third, study real poems, not just flashcard definitions. Analyzing one real poem by Langston Hughes or Emily Dickinson beats memorizing 10 terms in isolation any day of the week. And finally, practice that TPCASTT method together on an unfamiliar poem so it becomes second nature. So we've covered the high-priority terms, the tricky comparisons, and the ultimate mnemonic cheat code. The study guide leaves us with this really wonderful thought. Poetry is not just a puzzle to be solved, it is an experience to be felt and then understood. Students and parents, armed with this playbook, you have everything you need. So, are you ready? Get out there and show what you know on that EOG.